Lord, the smell of it. That's the first thing I remember. Before the doorbell even rang, this cloying cloud of gardenia and something cheap, like a knockoff perfume from a strip mall, wafted in through the mail slot. It was the scent of an impending headache. It was the scent of my daughter-in-law, Brenda. I was sitting in my favorite armchair, the one with the good lumbar support that doesn't aggravate my arthritis, trying to enjoy my afternoon Earl Grey. The steam was rising just so from the porcelain. The Atlanta sun was hitting the dust motes dancing in the air. It was peaceful. Then, ding dong! The cavalry had arrived, whether I wanted it to or not. I took my time getting to the door. Let her wait. At 72, you've earned the right to move at your own pace, and frankly, I wanted another 30 seconds of quiet before the performance began. When I finally opened the door, there she was, plastered in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You know the kind, all teeth, no warmth. It's a predator smile. "Helen, sweetie, there you are," she cooed, barging in and wrapping me in a hug that felt like being constricted by a well-dressed python. The perfume was overwhelming. I was getting so worried you didn't answer my text. Honey, I saw your text. I chose to ignore it. I chose the bergamot scent of my tea over the digital leash of an iPhone. "Oh, Brenda, what a surprise," I said, extracting myself and smoothing down my cardigan. I was just wrestling with the computer. I shuffled back toward my chair, putting a little extra wobble in my step, a touch of the frail old lady. It's a useful mask to wear when you're assessing a threat. "The computer again," she said, her voice dripping with that syrupy, patronizing pity. She followed me into the living room, her eyes darting around, taking inventory, checking to see if the silver was still polished, I suppose, or if I'd finally lost my marbles and started stacking old newspapers to the ceiling. No such luck for her. I ran a tight ship. Always have. 35 years as a certified public accountant for one of the biggest firms in Atlanta doesn't just wash out of you like a grass stain. I sank back into my chair with a theatrical sigh. On the table next to me was my iPad, the screen glowing. It's this new accounting software my financial advisor insisted I get. It's called Fortress Ledger. Sounds secure, doesn't it? "Oh, that's wonderful," Brenda chirped, perching on the edge of the sofa opposite me. "It's so important to be secure at your age." "It's a damn nightmare is what it is," I grumbled, poking at the screen with a single trembling finger. "It sends me a notification on my phone every time a dividend from my portfolio pays out. Unusual activity detected. $17.42 has been deposited from Vanguard. $17, Brenda. It treats every deposit from my Social Security like it's a wire transfer from a Nigerian prince. This morning, it wanted a thumbprint, a retinal scan, and the name of my first grade teacher, just to let me see my Wells Fargo checking account balance. It's insanity." Right on cue. As if sent from heaven, a little red notification popped up on the iPad screen. Ping! Brenda leaned forward, squinting. "What's that, sweetie?" "Oh, for heaven's sake," I muttered, making a show of fumbling with my reading glasses. "It's another one. Security alert. Are you sure you want to authorize this monthly payment of $85.99 to Georgia Power? Yes, I'm sure. I've been paying the damn power bill for 40 years. I rather enjoy having lights. Back in my day, you wrote a check, you put it in an envelope with a stamp, and you were done. This is for whippersnappers." I let the iPad fall into my lap with a huff, looking up at her with what I hoped was the perfect blend of confusion and exhaustion. I let my shoulders slump. I let my face go slack. I played the part of a doddering old woman who couldn't handle the modern world. And Lord, did she take the bait. Her eyes lit up with a greedy, sanctimonious fire. She slid to the edge of the cushion, her hands clasped together like a televangelist about to ask for donations. "Oh, Helen," she breathed, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You shouldn't have to deal with all this stress. It's just too much. You've worked your whole life. You deserve to relax, not fight with Fortress Ledger." She said the name like it was a curse word. She leaned in closer, the gardenia cloud intensifying. "You know, I could help you with all this. I'm pretty good with these things. I use Zelle all the time. I could simplify things for you. We could just link your accounts to mine, just for monitoring, of course. That way, I could handle these annoying alerts and bill payments for you. You wouldn't have to worry your pretty little head about a single thing ever again." She sat back, that predator smile firmly in place, absolutely convinced she'd just offered a life raft to a drowning woman. She saw a confused senior with a good pension and a healthy portfolio, an easy target whose checkbook was about to be managed right into her own pocket. I looked at her, at this woman who had caused my family so much pain, offering to help me. I picked up my teacup, my hand suddenly as steady as a rock, and took a slow, deliberate sip. The warmth of the Earl Grey spread through me, a welcome contrast to the ice forming in my veins. I let the silence hang in the air for a long moment, watching her smug certainty. "Oh, honey, you have no idea who you're dealing with. You think you found a fool, but you've just walked into an audit."
I watched her preen for another minute, absolutely certain she'd landed the big one. She patted my hand, the one not holding the teacup, with a touch that was meant to be reassuring, but felt like a spider testing a web. "You just think about it, Helen. No pressure. I'm just here to help a friend in need." Friend. The word was so foul in her mouth I nearly spit out my tea. She finally gathered her ridiculously oversized purse, the kind of thing that could conceal a small dog or a large-scale embezzlement scheme, and stood up. "I'll let myself out, sweetie. You just rest." I gave her the most fragile, grateful smile I could muster. "Thank you, Brenda. You're a saint." Her own smile widened, a shark scenting blood. "Anything for you." I listened to the click-clack of her heels on my hardwood floors, the front door opening and closing with a gentle thud, and finally the self-important roar of her Lexus backing out of my driveway. The sound faded down the street, leaving only the chirping of the cicadas and the faint scent of gardenia hanging in the humid Atlanta air. And then I let go. The frail, slightly arthritic posture I'd been holding for the last hour dissolved. My spine straightened in that old oak rocker, each vertebrae clicking into place like the tumblers of a safe. The tremor in my hand, the one I'd been faking so convincingly, vanished. I placed the porcelain teacup and saucer on the wicker table beside me with a firm, deliberate clink. The sound was a period at the end of a sentence. The sentence was Brenda's delusion. My eyes, which had been clouded with feigned confusion, were now sharp, cold. My husband, Robert, God rest his soul, used to say I had the eyes of a hawk when I was working on a difficult audit. He'd say, "Helen, you look like you're about to tell a Fortune 500 company they've been cooking the books for a decade." He wasn't wrong. For 42 years, I wasn't just a bookkeeper. I was a forensic accountant. I didn't just balance ledgers, I hunted for ghosts in the numbers. I was the one they called in when the young whippersnappers with their fancy MBAs couldn't find where the money went. I'd sit in a sterile conference room with a mountain of files and a pot of coffee, and I would find the lie. The single misplaced decimal point that unraveled a multi-million-dollar fraud, the shell corporation registered in the Cayman Islands, the secret slush fund disguised as office supplies. And this woman, this gardenia-scented grifter, thought she could pull a fast one on me with a line about Zelle and simplifying things. Honey, I was simplifying things before her iPhone was a twinkle in Steve Jobs' eye. I reached over and picked up my own phone, an older model, but it works just fine. The screen lit up with another one of those damned alerts. It was the third one this week. That was the grain of truth in my little performance. The service was a pain in the neck, something my son David had insisted on setting up for me before. He said it was the best, top-of-the-line security. It just felt like a top-of-the-line headache to me. But it was that very headache that Brenda had latched onto, seeing it as the crack in my armor. She saw a widow on a fixed income, rattled by modern technology, ripe for the picking. She didn't see the woman who taught federal agents how to read a balance sheet. She didn't see the woman who clawed back every single penny a snake oil salesman scammed from her church's building fund, plus interest. She saw my grief for David and mistook it for weakness. Big mistake. My grief isn't a weakness. It's fuel. It's the engine that will power every single thing I am about to do to her. She hurt my son. She stood by and watched his life crumble, and then she had the nerve, the sheer unmitigated gall to come to my home, his childhood home, and try to swindle his mother. Oh no, this wasn't about my Social Security check or my 401k. This was about justice. The kind that doesn't happen in a courtroom. The kind that happens quietly, in columns of numbers and signed papers. I took a deep breath, the air no longer smelling of her perfume, but of the olive from my garden. The hunt had begun. And the first rule of hunting is to let the prey think it's the predator. You have to bait the trap. My finger hovered over Brenda's name in my contacts. I knew exactly what I was going to say. I would be hesitant, grateful, a little confused. I would be everything she expected me to be. I would hand her the shovel and let her dig her own grave. I'd let her help me. But we wouldn't be starting with my main checking account from Wells Fargo. Oh no, that would be far too simple. We'd start somewhere much smaller, much more complicated, a place with a paper trail she'd think was a dead end. What was the true nature of this financial help she was offering? It was theft, plain and simple, dressed up in a Sunday dress and a phony smile. But what was the nature of the help I was about to ask for in return? Well, sweetie, that was a full, unadulterated, line-by-line reckoning.
Lord, the air conditioning in that bank could freeze hell over. I swear they keep it at 65 degrees just to make you uncomfortable enough to get your business done and leave. I pulled my cardigan a little tighter around my shoulders, a deliberate, shaky movement. The arthritis, you know. It's a wonderful prop. We were sitting in those stiff, unforgiving chairs across from a young man named Mr. Davies. He had a nice, crisp suit and teeth that were a little too white. He couldn't have been more than 40, a real whippersnapper who probably thought a 401k was ancient history. He kept calling me Mrs. Parker, with this overly earnest professional sympathy that made my skin crawl. Brenda, of course, was perched on the edge of her seat like a vulture waiting for a cow to die. She'd put her hand on my arm no less than 4 times in the 10 minutes we'd been there. A comforting gesture, she thought. To me, it felt like she was checking my pulse. "So, Mrs. Parker," Mr. Davies began, his eyes flicking between me and the computer screen, "you wanted to review your accounts and possibly make some changes to the access privileges?" I blinked slowly, putting on my best lost in the fog expression. I let the silence hang in the air for a beat too long, just enough to make it awkward. My accounts? Yes, of course. Brenda has been so helpful. It's all getting so complicated. I waved a dismissive, trembling hand. All these numbers. My husband, Arthur, he always handled the numbers. A bald-faced lie, of course. Arthur couldn't balance a checkbook if his life depended on it. I was the accountant. I was the one who tracked every penny from the day we were married until the day he died. But Mr. Davies didn't know that, and Brenda, bless her greedy little heart, had always assumed I was just a simple housewife. "Of course," Mr. Davies said, his processional smile tightening just a fraction. "Well, let's start with the primary checking, ending in 7432. That's where your Social Security is deposited." Brenda jumped in before I could even open my mouth. "That's right, sweetie," she chirped, patting my arm again, pat, 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 like I was a golden retriever. "That's the main one we use for the bills. And Mr. Davies, it's just getting to be too much for her. Last month she almost paid the Georgia Power bill twice. I caught it just in time." Another lie. I've never paid a bill late or twice in my 72 years, but I just nodded meekly, looking down at my hands. My memory. It's not what it used to be. Mr. Davies looked at me, really looked at me, with a flicker of what I hoped was genuine concern. "Mrs. Parker, are you sure about this? Granting signatory authority is a significant step." This was it, the moment. Brenda leaned forward, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial, caring tone. "It's just to help her write the checks, Mr. Davies, to make sure nothing gets missed. Her son isn't around to help. I'm all she has." Oh, honey, the sheer venom in that statement. Her son isn't around to help, as if it were his fault, as if she hadn't been the architect of his ruin. The rage boiled in my chest, hot and sharp, but my face remained a placid mask of elderly confusion. I had to throw her off the scent, keep her focused on the big, shiny object. "Now, which one is that? The one with the government money?" Then I let my eyes wander, as if a thought had just struck me, a random, senile little thought. "Oh, and what about that other little thing? The AP Trust, Arthur's thing. Goodness, I haven't thought about that in ages. It can't be much." Brenda waved it away instantly, her focus unwavering. "Oh, let's not worry about that old thing now, Helen. That's just that dusty old account that pays the property taxes on that tiny piece of land up in Blue Ridge, remember? It's a nuisance. We need to focus on the main accounts so I can help you with the real bills." She saw it as a footnote, a boring administrative headache left over by a dead man. She had no idea. She had absolutely no idea what she was dismissing. It was perfect. I turned my full, watery-eyed attention to Mr. Davies. I let my lower lip tremble just a bit. "He's right, my boy. He's gone. Brenda is a godsend. I need her help. I want her to be able to sign things for me."
The banker held my gaze for a long moment. He was a professional. He saw the forms, the legal requirements, but I think he also saw a story he didn't quite like. But what could he do? I was a consenting adult, looking him in the eye and asking for this. His job wasn't to be a detective, it was to be a banker. With a sigh that was almost invisible, he nodded. He turned to his desk drawer and pulled out a crisp, fresh signature card. He pushed the form across the polished wood, the little X next to the line looking like less a place to sign and more like the end of a treasure map. Brenda's smile was positively radiant. She slid the bank's cheap ballpoint pen into my hand, her fingers guiding mine. "Just sign right here, sweetie," she cooed, her voice dripping with triumphant poison. "Then all your worries will be over." The whole world seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if I would hand my kingdom over to the Viper.
Lord, you would have thought she'd just won the Powerball. The ride home from the bank was insufferable. Brenda chattered on and on about how relieved she was, how she could finally take a real burden off my shoulders. The woman acted like she'd just liberated France. I just nodded and stared out the window of her ridiculously oversized Lincoln Navigator, focusing on the familiar crepe myrtles lining my street. The sweet, cloying scent of her perfume, I think it's called desperation, was giving me a headache. Back at my house, she didn't even offer to make me a cup of tea, just hustled me straight to my own dining room table, the one Robert and I bought with our first real tax refund back in '78. She plopped her designer handbag on the polished mahogany and pulled out a manila folder thick enough to stop a bullet. "Okay, Helen," she said, her voice dropping into that slow, patronizing tone people use for toddlers and the very, very old. She fanned a stack of documents out on the table. They were crisp, official-looking, probably printed straight from some cheap website like LegalZoom. "We just have a few more little things to sign, and then we'll be all set. It's just to protect you, sweetie, to make sure everything is safe." Safe for her, she meant. My eyes scanned the headings, and there it was, right on top in bold, unforgiving letters. Durable power of attorney. The whole shebang. The keys to the damn kingdom. She had the audacity to slide it right under my nose as if it were a grocery coupon. "This is the most important one, honey," she chirped, tapping a perfectly manicured nail on the title. "This just lets me talk to the people at the Social Security office for you, or handle the Medicare paperwork. You know how they try to confuse you with all that jargon. I'll sit on hold with them so you don't have to. It's just for convenience." Convenience. Bullshit. It was for control, complete and total. I let out a weary sigh. I made a big show of patting the pockets of my cardigan, then the tabletop around me. "Oh, for heaven's sakes," I mumbled, squinting at the page. "I must be losing my mind. I can't seem to find my reading glasses anywhere. My arthritis has been acting up something fierce today. I must have left them in your car or at the bank." My good tortoiseshell glasses were of course tucked neatly inside my purse, which sat on the floor right by my feet. Brenda's patience visibly thinned for a millisecond before she pasted that sickeningly sweet smile back on her face. "Oh, don't you worry about a thing, Helen. It's mostly legal boilerplate. I'll show you exactly where to sign." "You're a saint, dear," I said, my voice cracking just so. I shifted in my chair, the one with the good lumbar support. I made sure I was angled just right, facing the large mahogany bookshelf against the far wall. It's full of Robert's old law books, my collection of porcelain birds, and that little black digital clock my grandson, bless his heart, gave me for Christmas last year. A fancy little thing that also shows the temperature. He told me, "Grandma, this is so you can keep an eye on things." And oh, I was. I leaned forward into the soft light from the window, making sure Brenda and the stack of papers were perfectly framed beside me, right in the line of sight of that clock's tiny, discreet lens.
The little red recording light was so small, you'd never notice it unless you were looking for it. "It's all just such a blur without my glasses," I whispered, letting my hand tremble as I reached for the pen she was holding out. Her fingers closed over mine, guiding my hand to the first signature line. Her skin was cold. "Right here, Helen, just your full name." I let her guide me. I let my hand shake and wobble. I made my signature, usually a firm, clear script honed by 40 years of accounting, look like the last will and testament of a dying spider, a pathetic, spidery scrawl that screamed frailty. Every dip and scratch of that cheap ballpoint pen on the paper was a performance. She thought she was directing the show, but she was just the star of my own private movie. She pushed another page in front of me. "And here for the health directive." I signed. Another page. "This one is for the investment accounts." I signed again. Paper after paper, a blizzard of legal jargon I was pretending I couldn't see. She just kept pointing with that blood-red fingernail, and I just kept signing. The whole stack was done in less than 15 minutes. She gathered them up, tapping them into a neat, triumphant pile. That gleam in her eye wasn't just victory, it was pity. She looked at me, this poor, doddering old fool, and I could see her thinking she'd done me a favor. She left me there, sitting alone at my own table, with nothing but a half-empty cup of now cold Earl Grey. To any outside observer, it would have looked like the final heartbreaking scene of a woman signing away every last shred of her life, her future, her independence. A complete and total surrender. Had I just handed the Viper the keys to everything my husband and I had worked our entire lives to build?
Hell, I didn't even wait for the sound of her cheap little Toyota to fade down the driveway. The second I heard that front door click shut, the lock engage, it was like a switch flipped inside me. The frail, trembling old woman who couldn't hold a pen steady, she evaporated. Gone. Poof. I sat up straight, my spine clicking into place like a soldier's. The arthritic slump I'd been perfecting for weeks vanished. I looked at my hand, the one that had produced that spidery, pathetic signature. I flexed my fingers, steady as a rock. 40 years of balancing ledgers for a Fortune 500 company doesn't just wash away with a few gray hairs, you know. That cold cup of Earl Grey was still sitting there, a sad little puddle on its saucer. I picked it up, walked it to the sink, and poured it right down the drain with a satisfying glug. I rinsed the cup, placed it in the dishwasher, and wiped the counter clean. Order. Control. That's how you win. Not with tears and hysterics, with cold, hard, meticulous planning. I pulled my iPhone out of my apron pocket. Not some big buttoned, help I've fallen piece of junk. A proper iPhone, the latest model. My son, Robert, had insisted. He always said, "Mom, you're sharper than half the young bucks in my office. You need the tools to match." God, I miss him. The thought of him was a sharp pang, a reminder of exactly why I was doing this. This wasn't just about money. This was about honor. I swiped open my contacts, my thumb moving with practiced speed, and hit the speed dial for Davies. It rang twice. "David Davies?" His voice was calm, professional. My voice, when I answered, was not the thin, reedy whisper Brenda had heard for the last hour. It was the voice of Helen Parker, senior accounts manager, retired. The voice that could make a cocky junior executive break into a cold sweat. "David, it's Helen," I said, my tone crisp. "The Eagle has landed." A slight chuckle on the other end. "Helen, we're not running a spy ring. Did she visit?" "She did," I said, pacing my kitchen, the linoleum cool under my slippers. She performed exactly as scripted, the concerned niece, the helpful advisor, the patient saint putting up with her dithering old auntie. I scoffed. She even brought the damn pen. "And the documents?" David asked, his humor gone from his voice. "All business now." "Signed, sealed,
and delivered into her greedy little hands, I confirmed. Every last one. The power of attorney, the health directive, the transfer on death forms for the Wells Fargo accounts, the whole dog and pony show. And the miscellaneous assets rider, the one we amended last week. Oh, she pointed right to it, I said, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. She called it just a standard form to tidy up any loose ends, honey. A loose end. That's what she called it. I signed it with an extra little flourish. Good, David said. The bait is set then. The trap is sprung the moment she files any of it with any financial institution. The bank's fraud department will be alerted automatically, and so will I. Perfect, I said. She thinks she just walked out of here with the keys to the kingdom. She has no idea she just lit the fuse to her own life. I ended the call and stood there in the silence of my kitchen, the afternoon sun slanting through the blinds. I looked at my own reflection in the dark screen of my phone. I didn't see a frail old woman. I saw a general, a tactician. You're probably thinking, "Good Lord, Helen, what did you do? Did you just sign everything over to that viper?" You think I let that girl walk away with everything Frank and I scraped and saved for? Our home? Our security? The legacy we built for our son? Oh, sweetie, you have to understand. In accounting, there's the number everyone sees on the top line, the big flashy profit. And then there are the footnotes, the tiny little addendums and riders that no one ever bothers to read. That's where the real story is. That's where the truth lives. Those papers Brenda has clutched in her purse right now, they weren't an act of surrender. They were an affidavit, a confession. And every spidery, shaky signature I put on that paper wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a weapon, primed and ready. The question wasn't, what had I just given away? The real question was, what exactly had she just stolen?
Lord, some people are just born to be fools. They can't see the cliff for the gold nugget sitting on the edge. I went to the kettle to make my tea. Earl Grey, of course, the only civilized thing to drink after an encounter with a barbarian. The water was just starting to rumble. Through the kitchen window, I could see my front porch, and there she was, Brenda, pacing back and forth like a caged hyena, clutching that portfolio to her chest with one hand and holding her iPhone to her ear with the other. She must have thought she was out of earshot. People her age, they don't have a concept of how sound travels on a still afternoon. They think if they can't see you, you can't hear them. Bless her heart. She was walking right past that ridiculous bird feeder my son Mark had insisted on installing last year. He'd found it in some high-tech gadget magazine. It looks less like a bird feeder and more like something that fell off a Soviet satellite. A sleek black cylinder with a little solar panel on top. He said it was for the finches. I told him the only thing it was feeding was the squirrel's sense of adventure. The birds won't go near the damn thing. But it made him happy, so I let him put it up. Frank would have hated it. He liked things you could fix with a wrench, not a software update. Brenda stopped her pacing right beside it. The afternoon sun caught the cheap rhinestones on her purse, sending a tacky little glare into my kitchen. And her voice, honey, her voice was loud enough to curdle milk. "Kelly, you are not going to believe this," she chirped into her phone. A little laugh, high and thin. It worked. It worked better than I even imagined. I poured the boiling water over the tea bag in my favorite porcelain cup, the one with the little blue forget-me-nots. I let the steam rise and cloud my glasses for a moment. "The old bat totally folded," Brenda crowed. "I laid it on thick, you know, about Mark, about being all alone. I even squeezed out a few tears." She laughed again. Pathetic. She was shaking so bad she could barely hold the pen. Arthritis, I guess. Or maybe just pure terror. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my tea. The bergamot was a comfort, a small, perfect anchor, and a sea of her filth. "I have it all, Kelly. Signed, sealed, delivered.
Power of attorney, changes to the will, access to the accounts, everything. She practically begged me to take it. A pause. I imagined this Kelly on the other end, some vapid creature just like her, squealing with delight. "Oh, she's losing it, completely," Brenda said, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial stage whisper that probably carried all the way to the street. She was talking to herself, going on about footnotes and accountants. I think she's got dementia setting in. It's actually sad, but honestly, it's for the best. This is what Mark would have wanted. He knew I deserved to be taken care of. He would never have wanted his mother, in her state, to be in charge of all this. It's my money now, my house. I'm just securing the assets. My money, my house. The teacup was steady in my hand. My breathing was even. I felt nothing but a cold, clean certainty. The kind you get when the last column of a 10-page audit finally adds up to 0. Perfect balance, perfect justice. I'm going to head straight to Wells Fargo tomorrow morning, file the POA, get my name on the accounts. David, his lawyer, he's going to get a certified copy too. The look on his face, he always hated me. She let out a triumphant sigh and strutted off my porch down the walkway to her ridiculous little sports car, the one my son paid for. The screen door slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing in the quiet air. I stayed at the window watching her drive away until her car was just a red speck down the street. Then my eyes drifted back to the porch, to that ugly black cylinder Mark had installed, the bird feeder. I looked at the tiny, dark, lens-like opening on its side, pointed directly at the spot where Brenda had been standing. David, my lawyer, hadn't just recommended a good trap. He'd recommended the best bait to go with it. He called it a state-of-the-art wildlife camera. Said it was amazing what you could capture with it. She thought she was just talking to her friend Kelly. She had no idea she was also giving a sworn, recorded statement, a full, gleeful confession delivered with her own 2 lips, preserved in crystal clear, high-definition audio. So now I had the signed documents, which were a trap in themselves. And I had this masterpiece of arrogance. The only question left was which piece of evidence would be more satisfying to use in court.
Well, it didn't take long. Not long at all. I gave it 3 business days. An accountant's habit, I suppose. You learn the rhythms of banks and government offices. Monday, she'd file the papers. Tuesday, they'd get processed. By Wednesday, the mail would run. I spent those 2 days in a state of, well, I guess you'd call it armed meditation. I did my water aerobics, I balanced my checkbook down to the cent, and I drank my Earl Grey from my good china, the Lenox set Mark and I got for our wedding. Each sip was a small act of defiance. I was calm, I was centered. I was a coiled rattlesnake in a rocking chair. Wednesday afternoon, just as the mail truck was rumbling down the street, my doorbell rang. Not the cheerful chime of a neighbor, but a hard, insistent press. I opened the door to a young man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on God's green earth. He was wearing a rumpled polo shirt and holding a thick manila envelope. "Helen Parker?" he mumbled, avoiding my eyes. "I am," I said, my voice steady. He thrust the envelope at me. "You've been served." I took it from him. The paper felt cold and heavy, like a stone. He turned and practically sprinted back to his beat-up Toyota Camry, leaving me standing in the doorway holding the official declaration of war. I didn't open it right away. I closed the door, walked to the kitchen, and put the kettle on again. I let the whistle scream before I poured the boiling water over a fresh tea bag. Only then, with the warm, fragrant steam rising in front of me, did I sit at my kitchen table and tear open the seal. Lord, give me strength. The paperwork was thick, full of legalese designed to intimidate and confuse, but I was a CPA for 42 years, honey. I handled the IRS. This was child's play.
I skipped past the boilerplate and went straight for the meat, the sworn petition for an emergency temporary conservatorship, filed by Brenda L. Hayes, for my own protection. The grounds, they were spectacular. A masterpiece of fiction. She cited my rapid cognitive decline, my inability to manage my own financial affairs, and my personal favorite, my increasing paranoia and isolation. She claimed I'd been giving large sums of money away to telephone scammers. Me, the woman who still calls the bank to verify a Zelle request from my own grandson for $20. And there it was, attached with a paperclip. Exhibit A letter from a Dr. Marcus Sullivan, a name I'd never heard in my life, from a clinic I'd never visited. The letter was a 2-page summary of my supposed dementia. It mentioned sundowning, memory lapses, erratic behavior. It recommended immediate intervention before I became a danger to myself. It was all bullshit, of course, a purchase diagnosis from some snake oil salesman with a medical degree. I'd bet my Social Security check that Brenda paid him in cash, probably with money she'd siphoned from my son's account to begin with. I sat there, reading the lies, one after another. She'd even twisted my grief over Mark into a symptom of mental decay. Obsessive mourning, the petition called it. I felt a cold fury settle deep in my bones. It wasn't hot and messy. It was the kind of cold that freezes water pipes until they burst. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my life, my mind, my legacy, my name. Just then, the little digital panel on the wall beeped. It was that new Honeywell smart thermostat my son had insisted on installing before. It was supposed to be a convenience, but the blasted thing was always acting up, changing the temperature on its own schedule. It flashed 78 degrees in bright blue letters, even though I keep it set at a sensible 74. Another damn thing to fix, another thing she probably would point to as proof I couldn't manage my own home. I picked up my iPhone, another device she'd probably claim I couldn't operate, and called David. "They served her," he said before I could even say hello. He'd already gotten the electronic notification. "The hearing is set for Tuesday morning. Brenda's petitioning for full control, medical, financial, everything. She's not playing around, Helen." "I've read it," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "It's quite the work of art. She even got a doctor to sign off on it." "I'm already running his license. My guess is he's got a history with the medical board." "But Helen, you need to understand. On paper, this looks bad. She has the power of attorney you signed. She has a doctor's note. The judge will see a concerned daughter-in-law and a frail elderly woman. They're going to be inclined to believe her, at least at first. This is an uphill battle." I looked out the window at my azaleas, which were just starting to bloom. Mark and I planted those bushes 30 years ago. I'd be damned if I was going to let that little witch decide when they got watered. "David," I said, my tone shifting. The polite elderly woman was gone. The accountant, the one who stared down auditors and found errors in their own math, was back. She thinks she's holding a royal flush. She has no idea I'm holding the whole damn deck. He was quiet for a moment. "So we use the video?" "Oh, we'll use it," I said, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. "But not yet. First, we let her walk right into the courtroom and perjure herself under oath. Let her tell the judge with those big, sad eyes how worried she is about poor old Helen." I could almost hear David's grin over the phone, but his next words were a sobering splash of reality. "It's a bold move, Helen, but a judge has signed an order for a hearing. You're now officially on the defensive in a court of law. She has documents. She has a doctor. All you have is a recording she doesn't know exists." He was right. On paper, I was a confused old woman with dementia. She was a loving family member with legal authority. How does one person fight back against a formal legal challenge like that when the system itself is designed to protect you by taking away your power?
Lord, that courtroom was cold.
You know the kind of cold I mean? Not just the air conditioning, which felt like it was set for a meat locker, but the kind that seeps into your bones from the marble floors and the hard, unforgiving wooden benches. I sat there next to David, my hands folded neatly in my lap, trying to look like the frail, confused little old lady they were all expecting. The cheap wool of my Sunday best suit felt scratchy against my skin. The whole room smelled of old paper and lemon-scented floor polish, a combination that just screams bureaucracy. Brenda was sitting across the aisle with her lawyer, a young buck in a shiny suit that was a size too small in the shoulders. He looked like a Ken doll someone had tried to squeeze into the wrong box. And Brenda, oh honey, she was putting on a performance worthy of an Oscar. She had a little lace handkerchief she kept dabbing at the corners of her eyes, her shoulders occasionally giving a delicate, tragic little shake. She wore a simple gray dress, no jewelry except her wedding ring. The very picture of a devoted, heartbroken daughter-in-law, forced to take this terrible step for the good of the family. Bullshit. That's what it was. Pure, unadulterated bullshit. Her lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, stood up. He spoke in that syrupy, condescending tone people use when they're talking to a child or a golden retriever. "Your Honor," he began, gesturing toward me with a sweep of his hand, "we are here today out of profound love and concern for Mrs. Helen Parker." I had to physically restrain myself from snorting. Profound love. The only thing Brenda profoundly loves is the balance in a Wells Fargo bank statement. He droned on, painting a picture of me that was utterly heartbreaking and completely false. He mentioned my repeated instances of confusion, my inability to manage daily finances, and my increasing paranoia. He presented the report from that quack doctor she'd hired, the one who'd spent all of 15 minutes with me asking if I knew what year it was. Then he pulled out the big guns, my bank records. "Your Honor, if you'll look at Exhibit C, we see a pattern of erratic and, frankly, alarming financial decisions." He held up a statement. "Just last month, Mrs. Parker made a wire transfer of $50,000. He paused for dramatic effect, letting the number hang in the stale air. "To an entity calling itself the Sparrow's Nest Foundation. Our preliminary searches can find no official record of this charity. It appears to be a shell. This is a classic, textbook example of an elderly individual being financially exploited due to severe cognitive decline." David shifted in his seat next to me. He'd warned me about this part. The Sparrow's Nest was my ace in the hole, but right now it looked like a noose around my neck. Brenda let out a small, choked sob into her handkerchief. She was good, I'll give her that. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of character assassination, Mr. Abernathy sat down. The judge, a woman about my age, with tired eyes and a sensible haircut, looked over her spectacles at me. "Mrs. Parker," she said, her voice even, "do you have anything you'd like to say in response to these allegations?" David put a steadying hand on my arm. I could feel the tremor in his fingers. He was nervous. He thought I was about to play the biggest gamble of my life. He was right. I took a deep, slow breath. I pushed myself up, my knees cracking like a firecracker, and I stood. The polite, slightly dazed old woman who had walked into the courtroom was gone. I looked directly at the judge, my spine as straight as a ledger column. My voice, when it came out, didn't tremble. It didn't waver. It filled that cold, quiet room with an authority it hadn't heard all morning. "Your Honor," I said, my tone clear and sharp, "I may be 72 years old, my arthritis may act up when it's about to rain, and I may need a magnifying glass to read the fine print on my Social Security statement, but I assure you I am sharper than a CPA's pencil on tax day." A ripple went through the courtroom. A little gasp from the gallery. Brenda's lawyer shot to his feet, but the judge waved him down. Brenda herself had stopped dabbing her eyes. Her head was cocked, a look of genuine confusion on her face. "Oh, sweetie, you have no idea." "For the past 6 months," I continued, turning my gaze to lock onto Brenda, "I have allowed my daughter-in-law to believe I was succumbing to dementia. I have feigned confusion. I have pretended to forget names and dates. I'd even misplaced my checkbook a time or two. Why? Because it's amazing what people will say and do when they think you can't remember it 10 minutes later. It's amazing the greed and the cruelty that comes out when they think the matriarch of the family has lost her ever-loving mind. The color drained from Brenda's face. Her jaw went slack. The lace handkerchief fell from her limp hand to the floor. You thought you could get a doctor to sign a piece of paper. You thought you could wave some bank statements around and have me declared incompetent. You thought you could take control of my home, my assets, everything my husband and I worked our entire lives to build. You thought it would be that easy. I turned back to the judge. The paranoia Mr. Abernathy mentioned, it's not paranoia when someone really is out to get you. The erratic financial decisions, they were a test, and she failed spectacularly. The silence in the room was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the worn carpet. The judge stared at me, her expression unreadable, a mixture of shock and deep skepticism. She had a mountain of documents on one side and my incredible story on the other. Is my word alone enough to stop this runaway train? Can a 72-year-old woman armed with nothing but her own testimony dismantle a legal case built on lies, a crooked doctor, and a whole lot of nerve?
Lord, the silence in that room, it was thick enough to choke on. The judge, a woman named Alistair, who looked like she'd chewed nails for breakfast, peered down at me over her glasses. Her face was a perfect granite mask of judicial impartiality, but I could see the doubt churning in her eyes. It was my word, the word of a supposedly senile old woman, against a mountain of paperwork, a doctor's sworn statement, and the teary-eyed performance of a lifetime from my darling daughter-in-law. For a split second, a cold sliver of fear went through me. What if this wasn't enough? What if they really did have me? My lawyer, a young buck named Mr. Davies, who was sharper than a brand new tack, cleared his throat. He was a good boy, but he had the unfortunate habit of looking perpetually nervous, which was not inspiring confidence at that particular moment. He stood up, clutching a small, sleek digital audio recorder. "Your Honor," he said, his voice just a little too high, "with the court's permission, my client's paranoia has led her to take certain precautions. We would like to submit Exhibit D into evidence." Mr. Abernathy, Brenda's high-priced snake oil salesman of a lawyer, shot to his feet. "Objection! Ambush! We have no idea what this is. It could be anything, doctored, edited." Judge Alistair held up a hand, silencing him with a look that could curdle milk. "Mr. Davies, what precisely is Exhibit D?" "It's a recording, Your Honor." He pressed a button. First, there was a crackle of static, then the faint, familiar sound of the wind chimes my son David had given me, tinkling in the afternoon breeze. And then, a voice, Brenda's voice, as clear as a church bell on a Sunday morning. "I'm telling you, Carol, it's a gold mine. The doctor is a friend of a friend. He's just a GP, specializes in geriatric care, which means he'll sign anything for a generous consulting fee. We just need him to say she's a danger to herself, a little confused, a little paranoid." A second voice, her sister's, tinny and distant, probably on an iPhone. "Are you sure this will work, Bren? What if she fights it?" Brenda let out a laugh, a nasty, sharp little sound. "Fight it with what, Carol? She thinks Zell is a type of pudding. She can't even work her television remote. Once the court declares her incompetent, the trust is ours. The house is ours. I'll sell it so fast it'll make your head spin. I am so sick of that chintzy floral wallpaper. We'll finally be able to get that place on the lake." The recording went on for 5 solid minutes. She talked about my husband's investments. She complained about the pittance David had left her in his own will. She called me a crazy old bat who was hoarding money I didn't deserve.
With every word, another drop of color left Brenda's face. She was staring at the little black recorder on the lawyer's table as if it were a rattlesnake coiled to strike. Her whole body was shaking. My niece, Sarah, who was sitting behind her, had her hand clamped over her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. My nephew looked like he was going to be physically ill. And me? I reached down into my oversized purse and pulled out my stainless steel thermos. I calmly unscrewed the cap, which doubled as a cup, and poured myself a measure of still steaming Earl Grey tea. The scent of bergamot filled the air around me. I took a slow, deliberate sip, letting the warmth spread through me. It wasn't just tea. It was victory. It was vindication. This wasn't just for me. This was for Robert. This was for my David. When the recording finally clicked off, the silence that returned was 1,000 times heavier than before. It wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with Brenda's shame. Her lawyer wouldn't even look at her. He was just staring straight ahead, his jaw tight. A man who knew he'd just been handed the most humiliating defeat of his career. Brenda made a small noise, a little gasp like a leaky balloon, and sank down in her chair, her face buried in her hands. The judge stared down at her, and the granite mask had finally cracked. It wasn't skepticism anymore. It was a cold, hard, righteous fury. She had been played, and she knew it. Brenda's sobs were the only sound in the entire courtroom. A pathetic, whimpering sound from a woman who had just been filleted in front of her entire family. There was no coming back from this. No apology, no explanation, no tearful plea could ever erase what we all just heard in her own greedy words. Honestly, you almost have to wonder, how can a person, a woman like that, possibly recover from a public gutting of that magnitude?
Well, let me tell you, I got my answer to that little question, and it was a damn sight quicker than I expected. Because the sobbing stopped, just like that. It wasn't a gradual petering out, it was like someone flipped a switch. 1 second, Brenda was a puddle of manufactured misery. The next, the courtroom was dead silent again. Slowly, so slowly it made the hairs on my arms stand up. She lifted her head from her hands. Her face was still blotchy, her mascara running in 2 perfect, tragic lines down her cheeks. But the grief, the shame, gone, vanished. In its place was a smirk, a tiny, toxic little curl of her lip that I knew all too well. It was the same smirk she'd given me at the wedding when she'd accidentally spilled red wine on the antique lace tablecloth my own mother had given me. She looked right at me, past her lawyer, past the bailiff, and straight into my soul. And she whispered, just loud enough for the first few rows to hear, "Oh, honey, that's adorable." Before I could even process the sheer nerve, her lawyer, the young buck who looked like he was about to go cry in his car, was on his feet. He'd found his spine, it seemed. "Objection, Your Honor," he boomed, his voice suddenly full of righteous indignation. This performance is an outrageous violation of my client's privacy. That recording was clearly made without her knowledge or consent. Georgia is a 2-party consent state. It is inadmissible as evidence, and I move to have it struck from the record entirely, along with any consideration of its contents. The judge, who was still glaring daggers at Brenda, looked down at him. "Counselor, while the legality of the recording is certainly debatable, its contents have been heard." "And that is precisely the problem," he shot back, puffing out his chest. "Mrs. Parker has attempted to poison this court with illegally obtained, out-of-context audio. It's a desperate, theatrical move from a woman who knows her case is built on nothing but spite." I just sat there, holding my little thermos cup. The tea was getting cold. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the courtroom's air conditioning. Then the lawyer smiled. It was a thin, predatory thing. "However, Your Honor," he said,
turning to his briefcase and clicking it open with a flourish. "While my client has been grieving, we have been doing our due diligence. We weren't just sitting on our hands. We hired a forensic data recovery expert." Forensic what? It sounded like something out of one of those TV shows. I saw him pull out a thick stack of papers bound with a clip. He continued, his voice dripping with condescension. "These," he announced, picking up the top page, "are emails. Emails recovered from David Parker's encrypted cloud backup. Emails from David to his wife, Brenda, written in the months leading up to his passing." He let that hang in the air. My heart, which had been soaring with victory just minutes before, was now a stone in my chest. Then, the lawyer said in these emails, his eyes locking onto mine, a wolf cornering its prey, Mr. Parker repeatedly expressed his frustration. He writes, and I quote from an email dated October 14th, "Brenda, honey, you have to understand. My mother, she means well, but she can be a lot. She still treats me like I'm 12 years old, checking my bank statements and telling me what to do." He flipped a page. And another from November 2nd. "I know it's hard. I hate fighting with her too, but this is our life now. Her controlling behavior has to stop. Don't you worry, sweetie. I promise you I'm going to make it right." He looked up at the judge. He looked at me. Brenda was openly smiling now, dabbing at her fake tears with a tissue. They weren't just trying to invalidate my recording. They were trying to invalidate my entire relationship with my son. They were twisting his love, his private frustrations that every child has with a parent, into a weapon, and they were aiming it right at my heart. Could it be possible? Could the very words of my own beloved child, my David, be used to destroy me?
Lord, have mercy. It was like being hit by a bus you never saw coming. One minute, I was sitting there, a little smug, I'll admit it, watching that snake oil salesman's case crumble. The next, the floor just fell out from under me. All the air got sucked out of that big, stuffy courtroom. I felt the blood drain from my face, and for the first time since my Arthur passed, I felt truly, utterly old. My arthritis flared up in my knuckles, a dull, angry throb that matched the one in my chest. Those words, my son's words. My mother, she can be a lot. Her controlling behavior has to stop. Every syllable was a perfectly aimed stone, and they were all hitting me right between the eyes. Brenda's lawyer, that whippersnapper in his $1,000 suit, wasn't even looking at the papers anymore. He was staring at me. His eyes were cold, triumphant. He knew he'd landed a killing blow. And across the room, Brenda. Oh, honey. The performance was over. The crocodile tears had vanished. She was just sitting there, dabbing at her dry eyes with a pristine Kleenex, with the faintest, most victorious little smirk playing on her lips. She looked like a cat that had finally cornered a canary. And I was the canary. They had taken the most normal, private, everyday frustrations of a son and his mother and polished them up like a murder weapon. You know what I mean, don't you? What grown child hasn't gotten frustrated with their parent? David used to call me every time he got a head cold, wanting me to tell him what to do. The next week, he'd be lecturing me about how I needed to respect his independence because I asked if he'd balanced his checkbook. It's the dance we do. It's part of the messy, beautiful, infuriating business of loving someone your whole life. But in that courtroom, under the flat, unforgiving fluorescent lights, our dance was being twisted into something ugly. A story of a poor, henpecked husband and his manipulative, money-grubbing mother. My recording of Brenda, which had been my ace in the hole,
now looked like, well, it looked like proof of exactly what they were saying. It looked like the desperate, controlling act of a woman who knew her son was about to cut her off. My clever little trap had become the bars of my own cage. I looked over at my own lawyer, a good man, but he looked just as stunned as I felt. His mouth was a thin, tight line. He'd been blindsided. We all had. David was so private, so meticulous about his digital life. He was an accountant's son, after all. He kept everything in its own little box. All his business accounts for the construction firm firewalled from his personal spending. All of it backed up to some encrypted cloud thing he'd tried to explain to me once. He called it his digital fortress. He said it was the only way to keep things clean and safe. And now they had found a key. They had breached the walls and were looting the place for ammunition to use against his own mother. The silence in the room was deafening. I could feel the jury's eyes on me. Before, they'd looked at me with sympathy, a grieving mother fighting for her son's legacy. Now their faces were a mixture of pity and suspicion. They were buying it, hook, line, and sinker. They were seeing me as the villain of the story. Helen Parker, the puppet master, who was so awful that her own dying son had to write emails to his wife promising to make it right. My mind was racing, trying to find a way out, an explanation, a foothold, but there was nothing. These weren't lies cooked up by Brenda. They weren't accusations from some disgruntled employee. They were the typed words of my own child, my David, the boy I taught to ride a bike, the man I was so proud of. His voice, his phrasing, his little terms of endearment for her. Brenda, honey, don't you worry, sweetie. Each one felt like a fresh betrayal, a ghost rising from the grave, not to comfort me, but to condemn me. The lawyer let the silence stretch on, savoring his moment. He placed the emails back on the table with a soft, final thud. It was the sound of a coffin lid closing. My coffin. My entire case, my entire relationship with my son was being buried under the weight of his own words. Is there any way to fight against a dead man's words?
Lord, the sound of that gavel felt like a hammer blow to my own skull. "Recess," the judge announced, his voice a dull drone in the background. 15 minutes. 15 minutes to process the public execution of my character. 15 minutes to sit with the ghost of my son, who had apparently sided with the woman who destroyed him. The courtroom began to empty, a low murmur of voices and the shuffle of feet on the old linoleum. Brenda and her snake oil salesman of a lawyer didn't even look at me. They didn't have to. They'd fired their shot, and it had hit its mark. They sauntered out, confident, victorious. I just sat there, frozen at the polished mahogany table, the condensation from my water glass forming a perfect cold ring on the wood. It felt like a wreath. My lawyer, Mr. Davies, a man who is somehow both 75 and looks like a perpetually disappointed 40-year-old, cleared his throat. He is an old-school numbers man, the kind who still believes in the sanctity of a balanced checkbook. He didn't offer platitudes. He never does. My voice was a dry, cracked whisper. I couldn't even look at him. I just stared at that wet ring on the table. He really felt that way, Arthur? All that time, he thought I was that? The puppet master? The words hung in the air, unspoken but suffocating. I finally looked up at him, expecting to see pity. I would have hated it, but I expected it. Instead, his eyes were clear, focused, almost bored. He reached over with a hand dotted with age spots and gave my own a single, firm pat. It wasn't comforting. It was a command, like telling a nervous dog to stay.
Emotions are fleeting, Helen, he said, his voice as dry as autumn leaves. Feelings change with the weather. You know what doesn't change? I just shook my head, my mind at complete blank. Debits and credits, he said with the finality of a priest stating scripture. Debits and credits are forever. Now, take out your phone. I blinked. My phone? What in God's name was he talking about? Was he going to show me a cat video to cheer me up? Your iPhone, Helen. Open it. Find the Fortress Ledger app. It's time to audit. Oh, for heaven's sake, that app! My son, David, had insisted on it for the family business accounts. It's cloud-based, Mom. It's secure. It has two-factor authentication, he'd say, all bright-eyed and excited about technology. To me, it was just a nuisance. A slick, ugly green icon on a screen full of things I barely used. It was slow, it was confusing, it was everything I hated about the modern world. A world where a lifetime of careful bookkeeping in a physical ledger could be replaced by some whippersnapper's code from Silicon Valley. Every time I had to log in, I'd grumble about it. The passwords, the little codes they'd text you. It was a damn chore. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type in my passcode. I fumbled, tapping the wrong numbers twice. A wave of hot frustration washed over me. I can't, Arthur. This is ridiculous. What does this have to do with those emails? Everything, he said calmly, watching me. He wasn't helping, just observing. You are an accountant, Helen, the best I've ever known. And what do we do when the story doesn't make sense? We follow the money. Open the app. It's time to stop being a grieving mother for 5 minutes and start being the shark you were at Parker & Sons. His words were a splash of cold water. He was right. I had let Brenda turn me into this fragile old woman, a victim. I am not a victim. I took a deep breath, the stale courtroom air filling my lungs. I steadied my hand, my fingers finding the correct keys. The screen unlocked. I found the ugly green icon for Fortress Ledger and tapped it. The little wheels started spinning, loading, verifying, demanding a thumbprint. It was just as annoying as I remembered. I could feel the jury's suspicious eyes on me, even from the hallway where they were getting coffee. I could hear David's voice from the emails. Oh, Brenda, honey. Oh, don't you worry, sweetie. The betrayal was still a hot poker in my gut, but beneath it, something else was stirring. The old Helen, the accountant, the shark. The app finally opened, revealing rows and rows of neat, tidy numbers. Transactions, dates, notes. It was the financial lifeblood of my son's last 2 years, all laid out in cold, hard, undeniable data, a world away from the emotional chaos of his supposed emails. Mr. Davies leaned in, his voice low. Go to the expense reports for the last 6 months of his life. Cross-reference them with the dates on those emails Brenda's lawyer so kindly provided. My heart started to beat a little faster, a different kind of beat. Not panic, not grief. It was the thrill of the hunt, the feeling I used to get right before I found an error in a client's books, the tiny loose thread that when pulled would unravel the whole sweater. What in the hell could my son's ridiculous, irritating accounting software have to do with any of this?
Lord, the theatrics of it all. You'd think we were on Broadway. The bailiff called us back in, his voice all booming and self-important, and the herd of us shuffled back into that stuffy, wood-paneled box. The air hadn't improved. Still smelled like stale coffee and cheap lemon-scented cleaner, trying and failing to cover up decades of desperation. I settled back into my chair, the hard wood protesting against bones that have seen more tax seasons than that young buck lawyer of Brenda's has seen birthdays. Across the room, Brenda was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. A fresh one, of course, for show. She got me looking and gave me this tiny, pathetic little smile. Oh, sweetie, You have no idea what's coming." I just gave her a flat, even stare. The kind I used to give junior accountants who tried to hide a rounding error in a quarterly report. The kind that says, "I see you, and I'm coming for you." Mr. Davies let the room settle. He stood, adjusted his tie, and looked at the judge. "Your Honor," he said, his voice calm and steady as a rock, "the defense has one final piece of evidence to present." Brenda's lawyer shot up like a jack-in-the-box. "Objection! We've had discovery. This is a stunt. A last-ditch effort to smear my client's character with," he waved his hands around, searching for the right word, "with irrelevant financial data." The judge, a woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else, probably tending to her roses, sighed heavily. "Mr. Davies, what is the nature of this evidence?" "It is digital, Your Honor, and it is directly relevant to the authenticity of the emails presented by the plaintiff this morning." The judge peered over her spectacles. "Proceed, but make it quick." Brenda's lawyer plopped back down in his chair, fuming. Brenda, however, just looked bored. Confused, maybe, but not worried. And why would she be? It was just some accounting nonsense from my son's work. What could that possibly have to do with her? She probably figured we were going to argue about a Zelle payment for groceries. Honey, you are so far out of your league. The courtroom lights dimmed a little bit. A bailiff, a kid who looked all of 25, wheeled out a projector on a squeaky cart. He fumbled with the cables for a moment before a huge, bright rectangle of light hit the retractable screen behind the witness stand. And then, an image flickered to life. It wasn't a document. It wasn't a photograph. It was that damn ugly green Fortress Ledger logo. A low murmur went through the gallery. Brenda squinted at the screen, a little frown on her perfectly powdered face. She didn't have a clue what she was looking at. To her, it was just a screen full of gibberish. Columns and rows of numbers, alphanumeric codes, and timestamps down to the millisecond. It looked like a page out of a madman's checkbook. But I knew what it was. I remember David complaining about it over dinner one Sunday. "It's this new system the company rolled out, Mom. Fortress Ledger. Some kind of corporate blockchain nonsense. Every expense, every purchase order, every single damn keystroke is logged on this immutable ledger. It's a pain in my backside, but the brass loves it because it means you can't change a single digit after the fact. It's locked in forever, verified by 100 computers at once." At the time, I just nodded and said it sounded like a colossal waste of time, an accountant's nightmare. Now, seeing it projected 10 feet high, my blood ran cold, then hot. Immutable, unable to be changed. Mr. Davies walked over to the witness stand, holding a simple laser pointer. "Mrs. Parker, I know this is difficult, but could you please direct your attention to the data on the screen?" I nodded, my eyes glued to the familiar interface. My fingers twitched, itching to run the numbers myself. The hunt was on. This was my world. Debits and credits, assets and liabilities, truth and lies. And honey, the books always balance in the end. Always. Brenda's lawyer was whispering furiously to her, but she just shrugged, a picture of unbothered innocence. She was watching a foreign film with no subtitles, completely unaware that she was the villain of the story. The sheer arrogance of it all made my teeth ache. The red dot of the laser pointer danced across the screen, settling on a specific set of rows. "The plaintiff," he announced, his voice ringing with a newfound authority, "has submitted emails into evidence, allegedly from your son David, dated between October 15th and October 20th of last year. Emails that paint a very specific, very emotional picture." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Then he clicked a button and zoomed in on one specific line of code and numbers. It was an expense report entry. mundane. A charge for a hotel, a per diem for meals, the kind of thing I'd audited 1,000,000 times. But it was the date that made my breath catch in my throat. October 17th. He turned, his eyes locking not on me, not on the judge, but on the jury. "Your Honor, members of the jury," he said, his voice dropping, drawing everyone in. "What you are looking at is not just an expense report. It is an immutable, cryptographically secured record of fact, a fact that cannot be altered, deleted, or forged." The red dot settled on a long string of characters next to the date. It looked like nonsense, but it wasn't. "Mrs. Parker," Mr. Davies said, his voice echoing in the dead silent room, "can you please tell the court what the geo-tracking data embedded in this unalterable expense report says about where your son was when he supposedly sent his wife that heartbreaking email on the 17th? Lord, the theatrics of it all. You would have thought he was revealing the location of the Holy Grail. All eyes in that stuffy, wood-paneled room were on me. Brenda was practically vibrating in her seat, a smug little smirk playing on her lips. She thought this was her moment. She thought her lawyer, this Mr. Davies, had me pinned to the wall. I took a sip of water, letting the silence stretch until it was almost uncomfortable. My hands, despite the arthritis that usually gives me fits, were perfectly steady. I looked right at Mr. Davies, then let my eyes drift over to the jury. Just a few nice, normal-looking people who'd been fed a mountain of absolute bullshit for 3 straight days. "My son," I began, my voice as calm and clear as a bell, "was in Chicago on October 17th of last year. He was at the O'Hare Hilton Garden Inn in Conference Room B, giving a presentation on third-quarter logistics for his company. The expense report you're showing, the one with the immutable, cryptographically secured record," I made sure to say the words slowly to show I wasn't intimidated by his $50 vocabulary, "proves that he checked into his hotel at 4:15 p.m. Central Time and paid for his dinner via room service at 8:30 p.m. I let that sink in. "The heartbreaking email," I continued, adding a little tremor to my voice for effect, "was supposedly sent at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time, which would have been 7:45 p.m. his time, right in the middle of his presentation prep. So no, Mr. Davies, my son was not at home weeping and typing out his soul to his loving wife. He was earning a living, the living she was so eager to spend." A ripple went through the courtroom. Brenda's smirk vanished, replaced with a flash of panic. Her lawyer, Davies, looked like he'd just swallowed a fly. He'd walked right into it. He had proven his own evidence was a forgery. But that, my friends, was just the appetizer. My lawyer, Mr. Thompson, a wonderful, steady man who reminds me of my late husband, stood up slowly. "Objection, Your Honor. Relevance." The judge looked confused. "Mr. Thompson, it seems highly relevant to me. It speaks to the credibility of the plaintiff's evidence." "I agree," Mr. Thompson said with a placid smile. "But my client's testimony on this matter, while factual, is ultimately a distraction, because it doesn't matter if those emails were written by my client's son, by the plaintiff, or by William Shakespeare himself." Now everyone was confused. Davies looked suspicious. Brenda looked like she was trying to do long division in her head. "Your Honor," Mr. Thompson continued, walking toward the clerk, "we would like to present our own evidence, from the very same system, in fact, what my client's son called the Fortress Ledger." He handed the clerk a thumb drive. Another projection lit up the screen, but this one wasn't an expense report, it was a ledger. Clean, crisp columns of dates and transactions. It looked like a high-tech version of the checkbook I've balanced by hand for 50 years. And that's exactly what I told David it was when he set it up for me. He was always worried about security, about someone trying to pull a fast one on his old mom. "Think of it like this, Mom," he'd said. "Every time you move a single dollar, it's like it's being carved into a granite slab, witnessed by 1,000 notaries, and then locked in a vault. No one can ever change it. Not you, not me, not the president. A private blockchain," he called it. To me, it was just peace of mind. Mr. Thompson directed the court's attention to a single, solitary entry. "Your Honor," he announced, his voice booming in the now silent room, "this is an entry from the Fortress Ledger dated April 12th, 3 years ago." He paused for effect. "Long before my client's son received his unfortunate diagnosis. It is an immutable, cryptographically secured record of a transfer." He clicked, and the details filled the screen. It was a transfer of assets from Helen M. Parker to the David Parker Memorial Charitable Trust. The amount wasn't listed as a number. It was listed as a series of assets. The house in Ansley Park, the entire Wells Fargo investment portfolio, the 401k rollover account from my late husband's firm, every last stock, bond, and mutual fund, 95% of everything I owned in the world. It was all gone, transferred into an irrevocable trust 3 years ago. The estate Brenda was suing me for, it didn't exist. It was a phantom, a ghost. She had spent tens of thousands of dollars, forged emails, and perjured herself in a court of law to get her hands on a fortune that had been earmarked for children's literacy programs before she even knew my son was sick. I turned my head very slowly and looked at her. The color had drained from her face, leaving a pasty, slack-jawed mask of disbelief. Her hands were gripping the table so hard her knuckles were white. Her lawyer was shuffling papers, his face beet red, avoiding her gaze. He knew he'd been played. They'd been fighting over an empty box. The judge cleared his throat, peering over his spectacles at the screen, then at Brenda, then at me. A slow, dawning comprehension spread across his face, followed by a flicker of pure, unadulterated anger. He started talking about legal fees, about sanctions, about fraud upon the court. But I wasn't listening to him. I was looking at that girl, that greedy, conniving viper who had made my son's last months a living hell and tried to desecrate his memory. And as the bailiff took a step toward her table, all I could think was, what becomes of a predator, honey, when she finds out the entire hunting ground was just a mirage? What happens now that her whole world has been exposed as a lie?
The judge's voice was like gravel, rolling downhill. It wasn't loud, but it filled every corner of that courtroom. He was talking about contempt, about referring Brenda and that weasel of a lawyer to the state bar, about a full-blown investigation into perjury. Every word was a nail in the coffin of her greed, the sound of her future being hammered shut. They didn't put her in cuffs, not right then, but the bailiff, a big man who hadn't so much as blinked for 2 hours, stood up and walked over to her table. He didn't say a word, he just stood there, a silent, uniformed promise of what was to come, a symbol that the game was over. I gathered my purse. My lawyer, bless his heart, gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze. He was a good boy, a bit of a whippersnapper, but honest. He started whispering about next steps, about recouping my legal fees, but I just gave him a little pat on the hand. "Later, Daniel," I said. "Right now, I need a cup of tea." I stood up, my old bones creaking in protest after sitting on that hard wooden bench for so long. As I turned to leave, our paths crossed. She was being escorted out a different door, but for a moment, we were only a few feet apart. She looked hollowed out, like a Halloween pumpkin left on the porch until February. The life, the fire, the sheer brazen nerve, all of it was gone. All that was left was a brittle, empty shell. She wouldn't meet my eyes.
She stared at a point on the wall just past my shoulder, her jaw working silently. I stopped. Couldn't help it. I just had to say one last thing. I leaned in, my voice no more than a whisper, smelling the faint, sour scent of her panic. "You fought so hard for an echo, sweetie," I said. "All that lying, all that poison, for a ghost. I hope it was worth it." She flinched, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. And that was it. I walked out of that courthouse and didn't look back. I left her there with the bailiff and the ruins of her life. Screw that. My son's memory was safe. That's all that mattered. The drive home to my little brick house in Atlanta felt different. The air coming through the vents of my old Buick seemed cleaner. The familiar oak trees lining the street looked greener. It was the feeling of a great, heavy weight being lifted not just from my shoulders, but from my very soul. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't fighting. I was just living. Inside, the silence of the house was a comfort, not a burden. I went straight to my kitchen, filled my kettle, and set it on the stove. While it heated, I pulled out my favorite china cup, the one with the little blue forget-me-nots painted on it, and a bag of my good Earl Grey. The sharp, citrusy smell of the bergamot was like an old friend. The kettle began to shriek, and as I poured the steaming water over the tea bag, my iPhone buzzed on the counter. It was a notification, not a text, not a news alert. It was from an app my Mark had installed for me years ago. He knew I was an old-school accountant, a woman who lived by her checkbook and ledgers. He said, "Mom, this is the last ledger you'll ever need. It's tamper-proof. No one can ever mess with it. It's a fortress." He called it my Fortress Ledger. A funny name, but it stuck. I picked up the phone, my arthritis making my knuckles ache a bit, and I read the little banner at the top of the screen. The Fortress Ledger. The first annual Mark Parker Memorial Scholarship for Children's Literacy has been awarded to the Atlanta Public School System. I sank into my kitchen chair, the warmth of the teacup seeping into my hands. I looked at that notification, at my son's name, and one single hot tear rolled down my cheek and splashed onto the table. It wasn't a tear of sadness. Oh, no, honey. It was a tear of pure, unadulterated victory. That was the real inheritance. Not a stock, not a bond, not a pile of cash for some greedy little viper to squander on designer shoes and fancy cars. It was a promise, a legacy. It was my brilliant, loving son reaching out from beyond the grave to give a child a book, to give thousands of children a chance. That's a fortune no court can touch, no lawyer can seize, and no lie can diminish. Brenda thought she was fighting a tired old woman on a fixed income for a pile of money. What she didn't know, what that young buck of a lawyer could never have fathomed, was that they were taking on a retired accountant who had spent the last 3 years of her life learning everything she could about her son's final gift to her, that fortress ledger. You know what the kids call it these days? A blockchain, an unchangeable, unbreakable, public record of truth. I just called it Mark's last brilliant idea. So let him come. Let the state bar have her license. Let the DA have his perjury case. Let them all learn what happens when you try to bully a grieving mother who knows her numbers. After all, who in their right mind would ever try to challenge the woman who weaponized a blockchain?